My name is Tully. I am the owner and founder of Community Minded. I am so happy to be able to work with Alexandra Grey, our special guest, and Dylan Kaufman, our host, for this virtual masterclass open discussion. We also have classes starting the beginning of January with scenic design, set design, audio engineering classes, and lighting design. So please keep your eyes peeled for that, as well as all of those classes are virtual. So please sign up, spread the word, and enjoy. Thanks.
I think identity is something, obviously something super complicated, especially for adolescents, and I think especially in artistic fields and with music and acting. And so my first question is, what was your childhood like in terms of home life, growing up in Chicago, and how that influenced your journey with identity?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so I don't think that I ever, when you grow up in the hood or you grow up under the circumstances that I did, that was something that wasn't really talked about, especially not in the Black community. We don't talk about sexuality, or being gay or trans. Like you didn't have the language back then for what it was that you felt. And also at that time, I was pretty much, I was in foster care. So for me, it was about survival. Was I never had a chance to think about sexuality or anything. I always knew that there were things that I liked. I always knew that everything I did was female. Oh wow, what is this that I've been feeling all this time? Then you start to confront what it is that you're feeling. And so for me, that didn't happen until I was in high school. But early on, it was just kind of about, you just have your circumstances and you don't even talk about it.
Yeah. In terms of high school, what was it like navigating high school, and especially in terms of like exploring interests that you may have had, or like fitting in? Was that something that, because I know you didn't really talk about that much, um, and it wasn't something you thought about a lot, but in high school when it maybe became more a part of your thoughts, what was it like navigating that?
Yeah, high school was really, really weird for me because I mean, my self-esteem was like in the trash. I have friends who say, when I first met you, your self-esteem was at the bottom of my shoe. Now it's at least up to my kneecaps. So it's like, I was so timid. And I mean, I used to wear these huge sweaters and like, I mean, it really was. I'm surprised. I was just a few days ago kind of looking through some old photos and stuff. And I realized like my senior year was the year that I kind of um, started to really be more confident. I was like on the track team and I was on I was like senior athlete of the year. And then I was on show choir and I was on the prom court. Like I was like, people actually voted for me. So it was kind of that weird, never been kissed, the movie, that moment where I was like, I went back to high school and I was so popular my last year. But in the beginning, I mean, it was not like that. I was terrified of high school. And I think it was just because I was battling with this thing on the inside that I didn't know. And I felt like everyone could see my secret. I felt like everybody knew exactly what was going on with me and they were going to make fun of me. And they did. And probably because I was so insecure and so afraid. And they probably played on that in high school. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what shifted that last year of high school, but I think just getting to know more people, being on more sports and more things like that, I kind of got to know people and people started to embrace me just for who I was.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you remember when, or how old are you, or when you first discovered like music and or like acting as like an interest of yours, um, and like who some of your maybe biggest inspirations were?
Yeah, I don't think that I ever wanted to be an actor. I mean, I'm a singer as well. So for me, doing show choir in high school, that's singing, that's music and dance. And so for me, I mean, I just loved that. I don't think it was until I was in college, actually after college, where I really started to just kind of embrace the music more. And then somebody kind of threw out a suggestion to me and said, "Why don't you just go to LA and, be an actor? You're really funny." And I was like, "Okay." And I did. And so, that's kind of when I really started to fall in love with, wanting to be an artist and an actor, and doing background work and learning about headshots. And then I went to college here in Los Angeles and studied theater. And so it was probably when I was like 19 when I really really started to fall in love with it.
Yeah. What was your college experience like? And did you land on like a theater major like right away, or was that something that you kind of explored a little bit and then eventually like found yourself in?
Yeah, well, when I went to college in Chicago, I was studying pre-law because I was like interning at this law office, and that's what I was going to do. I was like, I'm from foster care. I'm like Black, and I guess I'm gay right now. I hadn't yet transitioned, and I was like, I have to be successful. Like, I can't be another stereotype, and so that's what I wanted to do. And it just so happened that when my circumstances at home changed, then everything changed. I was like, well, that's not really what I want to do. So why would I do the same thing I did in high school, And that is when I kind of made that switch and moved. And then I studied theater. So it was like already set that I was going to study theater and really focus on this as a craft and just dedicate my time to it. I was just like, hey, God, if this is what I'm supposed to do, show me.
Yeah. So when you were in college, and kind of started having this realization that this was something, important to you and something, that you felt like you were meant to do, when did you start auditioning in college? And when did the auditioning process kind of start for you in terms of like shifting from the college and studying it into like turning it into a career and something to do like full time?
Yeah. Yeah, well, when I first moved here to Los Angeles, I was homeless. Full picture. So, yeah, I was homeless. I was living in a shelter. And so I didn't enroll in college for about a year, until I was able to get into like a program, transitional program where I was able to get like some housing, and stuff like that. But during that time, I remember saying to myself, God, if I was crying, I was so emotional. I was here alone. I didn't have any family. And I was like, God, show me that this is where I'm supposed to be. And the next day that I got to Los Angeles, I was like working on a film, as a background extra. And they asked me out of like 25 extras to audition to like have a small speaking role. And I was like, oh my gosh, this must be the sign. And I mean, I was doing background work every week. I was living in a shelter, like going to set, you know what I mean? And so I just think that's when it really started for me. But the auditions didn't start to pick up. There's a whole process, right? There's like managers, agents in order to get to Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and all these networks. And so that took, you know, for, 3, 4 years, for me to go to college and, kind of just network and connect and find an agent and just do years and years of background work, audience work, game shows. And so that was kind of my process in the beginning.
Yeah, wow. Um, in terms of I'm so glad you brought up finding an agent. I feel like that is something that I especially hear kind of thrown around as a phrase like, oh, and then I found an agent. But I really don't know much about what that actually looks like. So I was what how did you go about, did you find your agent, or was that something you kind of like happened upon, and were there, things, if you were looking, were there things you were looking for, or
I was signed to an agency. There are lots of actors who are signed to who they're just like on this roster of like, maybe we'll send you out, maybe we won't. And so I was kind of working with some agency where they were never sending me out. If there wasn't a trans role, they weren't sending me out for it. And so, really, to me, I tell people, you have to really go after what it is you want in this business. You can't be timid about it. This is a business about networking and connecting, and you have to ask for what you want. And I had friends who were connected to agents and managers, and I just simply asked. I said, help. I was like, ask this guy, and I think he might have been romantically into me or whatever, but I didn't use him, but I was like, you know, can you talk to one of your agent friends for me? And he's just like, they're not going to want to represent you. This is like 2015 where trans wasn't really a thing. And so he was like, they're not going to want to represent you. And I said, here, send him this red carpet picture of me. And let's just see what he says. I sent it to him, and he's been my agent ever since. He was like,
Wow.
I mean, I feel like we're like in a marriage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been together this whole time. And I actually booked my first, television role on my own through a casting call. And so when I came on, I brought him on, and it was like he had already commissioned because I had a role. So it really, I think, is just about it's about networking. It's about doing the research. I mean, if you have IMDb Pro, you can find all of this representation on there, figure out what it is that they require, and submit yourself out to them. So that was kind of how I got my representation.
Right. In terms of in addition to like representation, what are some of the other like most important things regarding like the business side of the industry that you've kind of maybe learned as your career developed that may have been something you would have sought out sooner when you were starting out, or are there is representation a big bulk of it, or are there other like super important factors to that side of it?
Sure. Well, I definitely think the craft is the most important thing, right? Because you have to be able to act, and I think there are a lot of people who want to get in this business who don't want to put in the work. You know what I mean? I just got blessed in the sense that I studied theater in college, but a lot of what I was auditioning for was mirroring my real life, and the pain that I've experienced being disowned by my family. And so I came with an authenticity that was based off of my experience. And so I think casting directors and producers were able to kind of connect with that. And I'm like a very emotional person anyway, so it just worked. But I think just really focusing on the craft first is the most important thing. And yes, having representation is so important because, there are levels to this. You just can't not have representation and expect someone to discover you out on the street. It happens, but, it doesn't happen that often. And so I feel like now it's about making your own brand. I mean, there are people who are on Instagram, on TikTok, who are now creating careers for themselves and ending up on television shows. So I think there is no real roadmap to this. I think that making sure that the craft is strong is the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, if you do good work, then you do good work. You're going to do 1,000 auditions. I mean, I've done 1,000 auditions this year, more auditions than I've ever done. And I have not booked not one. And
Yeah.
I know that that's not because of a choice that I made or because I wasn't the best actress for it. I just know that, Hollywood is sometimes not a meritocracy. And if you can remember that you put everything into that audition, then you know that you can wipe your hands clean of it because it's out of your hands now because you showed up and did good work.
Yeah. I love the fact that you brought up the craft and this idea of like individuality and bringing what you have to your craft and your experiences making it's is so such a big part of what makes you unique and what makes you what you bring to the roles unique. Is there like do you have a specific process in terms of like if you're given maybe a side to come in with or a side for an audition or a monologue or maybe even once you book something like kind of what your process looks like in terms of breaking down the maybe the character or the piece you're given?
Yeah, I definitely think my process has changed a lot over the years. I think in the beginning I was so excited. to that I finally heard yes, because I had heard no so much that wasn't focused on the work. I think I was just saying, oh, I can do this. And I think there's a certain point when you get to be 40, 50 years old and you've been in the business for, X amount of years. I think, yeah, sometimes you can look at, aside and you can be like, all right, sometimes a scene doesn't require that much. You know what I mean? Sometimes it just requires you to show up and act. I think sometimes we get to, oh my gosh, it's like I have to dig deep. I have to isolate myself for 30 days. It's just like, no, all you have to do is act. And I think so over time my process has changed. And so I would definitely say this year and last year, um, everything changed for me because I really started to be very meticulous and really really break down every scene that I was doing, whereas I didn't really do that before. I just kind of would do the scene, and now it's a process. I think everyone's process is different, whatever works for you, but I think it's about taking it line by line and figuring out what it is that you want to say, and putting yourself in the shoes of that character. What is it that you want to say? What is it that what's the story you're trying to tell? And what's the backstory? Who is this character? So I think now that's the kind of work I've been doing, and I've been really, really impressed. I mean, can I say that without being like a total diva? I mean, my last project, I did this show on HBO Max, where I portrayed Lucy Hicks Anderson, who was a trans woman back in the 1940s. And I really believed that I was a 45-year-old woman. And I'm 29. And watching it, I was so blown away by my performance. I know that sounds crazy, but you know what? It's okay to sometimes give yourself credit when you do the work. And I really was so impressed. And I was like, I remember the process that I did for that shoot. I remember being on set and feeling like I was in 1945. I was so emotional because I had dropped so deep into that character. And so I think that's such a beautiful thing when you really can break down what it is that you're doing and step into that character. So for me, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to really get into the character and the process and all that. So
Yeah. In terms of like character and processes, is there like maybe a type of character or a specific type of project that has kind of been, maybe a dream role of sorts or something that, you've really wanted to work on?
yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a few. I mean, the past 2 years have just been incredible. I mean, I think sometimes it's a mental thing as well, because I did a lot of work in the beginning and then I didn't work for 3 years. And this is stuff that people don't really talk about. They just see you on social media and they think, oh my gosh, you're great, you're great. And it's like, no, there are dry spells in this business. I thought I was blackballed for a second because I was like, nobody wants to see me. I can't get booked for anything. And this is coming off of 7 primetime guest stars, and in 1 year. And so I think what happened was I had an attitude adjustment. I had to say to myself, don't feel entitled. You're not entitled to anything. What you're entitled to is to understand the business that you want to be a part of and how you want to help change it and make it better and easier for, other trans actors. And if you want to be in this business, then you better develop an extra layer of skin. And I did that, and I was determined to just never allow myself to be upset that I didn't get an audition, and everything changed from that moment. I haven't heard the word no at all until the pandemic started. Okay, shit. And I think that for me my dream role was my first movie that I booked, which is kind of like coming out now, Gossamer Folds. And that was like my dream role, was to play a woman from a time back in history, a young woman who was from the South and to just kind of be this character and tell this story. And I got to do that. And so that for me, it was like my dream role of all time. And then if I guess if we're talking about television, being on Empire was, I mean, that was a moment that I've practiced in my bathroom mirror like for years, every single day. Anybody will tell you, like, I've always practiced being on stage and being on Empire. And the fact that that happened for me is like, I still can't believe it. You know what I mean? Because you dream about this stuff, but when it happens, you're like, is this really happening right now? So, yeah, those were two roles that I really, really loved.
Wow. Um, I know you mentioned a little bit, there was a bit of a shift in attitude, especially during the dry spell that you face. And I was wondering, because of course, dry spells will always come and go. I was wondering, where you find your motivation to keep going and keep going in this industry, keep going in this business, and where you pull that motivation from, especially when you are facing, for example, a pandemic, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a best friend who's an actress as well, and we talk about this all the time, and it's definitely not easy. I think I used to be a very negative person in the sense that I would express exactly how I felt to all of my friends, and I didn't like that person. I didn't like that person because I imagined how I was coming off, and then I would experience other actors in that way, and I would say, "Oh my God, they seem really negative." And I was like, I don't want to be that person. And I want to be grateful. I've been able to do things that I think many artists dream of doing, and I've been able to do it. And I think once you've been chosen more than once, more than twice, you know, it's like you have it. You know what I mean? You have something special there. So I think what keeps me grounded and just keeps me humble and all of that is to just remember that I'm not in control of this. All I can do is show up to the room, leave everything on the floor, give the best performance that I can, and it's up to them. I can't make that decision. You just have to be able to trust that you are doing the work and that you know that you are talented. And even if you cannot hold a note as a singer, right? It's like if you get up every single day and you can't think about anything else but singing, then you're supposed to be a singer. And so that means you practice every single day. I tell all of my friends, I say, if you want to be a singer, you want to be an artist, it takes more than just having a nice voice. If I cannot connect with you when you're on that stage, then it doesn't matter if you sound like Whitney Houston. So it's like every single day you need to be practicing. You have to put in the hours every day. I have a karaoke machine here. I annoy the hell out of my neighbors. And guess what? I don't care because I was on a musical show and I was doing a little deal with Hollywood Records. Okay. I recorded 5 singles so they can kiss my ass. You know what I mean? It's like you never know what life is going to bring you. And so I say every single day, you better be singing in your bathroom. You better be doing a monologue. You better be on We Audition. You better be talking to a friend, helping each other with auditions. Me and my best friend, this is a really nice story. Me and my best friend, Koi Tan, she's an actress on Dear White People and a bunch of other stuff. And she's also trans and she's Black. And we were best friends for about a year. And our process was every time we had an audition, we always worked together. We would get on FaceTime and we would be on for 4 and 5 hours helping each other with auditions. And I mean, 2019, we both had an amazing year. She was on Dear White People. Then she got cast on How to Get Away with Murder. And then I got cast in the same episode of How to Get Away with Murder. And it was like, we're still to this day just like, how and like they really cast two Black trans women to play non-trans roles on ABC in
Awesome.
the same series, in the same season, in the same episode. And
Wow.
so she was the lawyer, I was the client. And it was just like, wow, anything is possible,
And you're always working
And
together.
so, yeah, and we were working together. And so it's like, putting in that work, I guarantee you it will pay off for you. So that is probably the best advice that I could give to people.
Yeah. And so in terms of, and you mentioned this also, I think in the last answer, but that feeling of being chosen, and it being up to them, and the people on the other side of the casting table, out of like the directors that you've encountered and worked with, are there particular ones that have had like a particularly large impact on you as a person and your career?
You know, I know I said at the beginning that I really didn't do a lot of theater, but I did do an audition for the public theater last year, and they flew me out. They loved my tape, I guess, and they flew me out to come do this big audition. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I just really didn't think I was that great, of a theater actress. And so I got to work with this amazing director, Leah C. Gardner, and we worked together for 2 days. And I mean, that is what made me kind of fall back in love with it, because there's still moments where you lose faith. We're human beings, right? So I can tell you all day to be confident, be strong, trust your craft, all of that. But there are going to be days that are going to be hard, and you're going to be sad. And there was moments that I was doing this process, but I wasn't in love with it like I used to be. I wasn't that 19-year-old little trans girl who had came to Los Angeles, who was on fire and was like, I could do anything. I was homeless at one point. I could do anything. I started to lose the fire for it. You know what I mean? And doing that audition with her, I mean, theater is so beautiful. I fell back in love with it. And even though I didn't get the role, okay, I didn't get the role, right? She sent me this long email about how amazing I was, and how, there's a whole committee that has to select and all this. But, she was just telling me, was so blown away by your performance. You showed up, and I just expect great things from you. And less than 2 weeks later, I booked, Empire, which was my biggest show today. So it's like everything happens for a reason, And so that's another reason why you can never be upset. There should never be a reason why you're upset that you don't get something, because you never know why something happens, because it could be blocking you from doing something and doing something that's greater for you, or that's a better opportunity for you. And that's happened so many times. So I never get upset anymore about not booking roles or anything like that, because it's like, hey, that just means that there's a bigger one waiting right there for me. So
And I think it's especially like so beautiful that such an amazing experience came from an audition, and especially for an audition for something you didn't end up getting. Because I feel like a lot of times when at least I hear a lot of the highlight and large experiences and the best experiences, the most impactful ones, come from the ones that people do book, and the ones that become these huge things. But I think a lot of it comes back to that craft, and the fact that you're able to have some sort of experience like that, and it's able to have an impact on you from an audition and a couple days working with someone is it's just
yeah.
that's so beautiful. um so we have a handful of questions from social media, people who have some questions for you. The first one is, when have you felt most challenged in a role?
Most challenged. What will I say? um I guess I'll say with the film that I did, Gossamer Folds. I mean, that was my first leading role, and we shot that over the course of 2 months. And so that was really challenging, because I was coming off of not working for about 3 years. And so I didn't trust that I had what it took at all, and it was a lot of pressure, because I'm like, I have to lead this movie and I have to be good. And I was really nervous. I think it played on my confidence a little bit the first few days of filming. I just felt like I just was horrible, and I think the director agreed. And it was just like, cut the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, this is something you worked for your whole life. You're number two on the call sheet. I should have been number one, but they said I was number two. I'm just kidding. No, I was number two on the call sheet, and I'm just like, this is what you dreamed of. Like, stop it. When you show up, it's like everybody's showing up today, and you have to lead this thing. So this is what you always dreamed of. And after I had that little talk with myself, then we got what we needed. And so that role was really challenging to be a character and have that character last for 2 months. Because when you do television, and you guest star here and there, you turn it on and off. When you recur on a show, you turn it on and off. And so I hadn't had that experience of having to stay into a character for so long.
Right. Wow. Okay, so the next question is, what was it like working on How to Get Away with Murder?
Oof. Amazing. I mean, that was a show that I watched religiously. Viola Davis is my biggest inspiration. I just can't even believe it. I mean, when I got the audition, I was in my hotel in Chicago, and I did it in the shower. That's where I did the tape. And I was really like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this. And they changed all the character names on the script, so you don't know who you're working with or anything like that. And when I finally got the role and I got the sides or the episode, I was like, oh my gosh, Viola Davis, I'm talking to her in my scene. I can't believe it. It was just amazing. It was a dream come true. I mean, she's one of the greatest, I think. And to be able to act opposite of her, and wow, I just can't even believe it. And she was the most amazing person I think I've ever worked with. I mean, she was like as if we had been girlfriends for 30 years, as if I had been an actress who won an Emmy, a Tony, Oscar. I was like, that's who I want to be in 25 years. I want to be that, have that type of spirit, that type of humility, and that type of energy. She's so funny. So it was such a beautiful experience.
So beautiful. That's so wonderful. Um, yeah. In addition to Viola Davis, who else do you look up to in the film industry and in television?
Well, I look up to God. But in terms of who I really, really just love, I mean, there's so many that I'm inspired by. Octavia Spencer. I love Sandra Bullock. There's so many actresses, but just even the ones that I've gotten to work with. I mean, Felicia Rashad. I got to work with her, and that was, I think, like my second role on television that I did, and I just couldn't believe that I was sitting in a car with her talking. I couldn't believe that we're in a scene together. I can't believe we're outside the hotel for hours just talking. I'm like, this is unreal. When this stuff starts to happen to you, you damn sure better be ready to embrace it. You know what I mean? And I was so caught up early on in the shock of it all, right? I was so caught up in, oh my gosh, like I talked to her, and I want to get a picture with her. Whereas now I'm able to really have it be a full circle moment and say, this is what you worked for. This is what you suffered for all those years. This is why you came to Los Angeles. You were homeless. You lived in a shelter. Your family has disowned you. They haven't called you in 9.5 years. Like this is the moment, it's moments like this. So it's like, be present, soak it in, and really say that this is something that you've earned. And this is just only, one of many that's going to come. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I've been so fortunate to work with and to meet in this business that I'm like, I'm just wow. Sometimes I have to pinch myself.
Yeah. We have one more question, and this is I'm gonna kind of add on to it a little bit. The question is, what do you look forward to most while on set? And I kind of want to add on to that. When you spent 2 months filming your movie, what was that 2 months like? And in terms of like, you know, filming every day or how often you filmed, and in terms of like the order that you filmed in, and like living near set, and like what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, I think what I look forward to the most when I'm going on set, I think is just, I mean, we're so spoiled as actors. You know what I mean? It's like you get a trailer and you have somebody like, "Oh, do you want tea?" It's like we're so spoiled. But it's something that's so amazing about it. Just it takes me right back to like the 19, 50s and 30s, where those actors used to show up to the studio lot, and it just takes me to that moment, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a dream to just be in this environment." When they say it's rehearsal, and you show up, it's like every day is a day to challenge yourself. And so I love just the atmosphere and all of that stuff. It just feeds my soul. There's nothing that I'd rather do more. And I always say when you're on set and you're in that 16th hour, you know, um, you know, I always say, don't ever take it for granted, because there's going to come a time where you're going to wish that you were right back there in that chair with all those cameras and all those lights and all those producers just waiting. You're going to want to be there. So every moment you're on set, always cherish every single moment. Don't ever take it 1 second for granted. And I guess in terms of like filming that movie for 2 months, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know if I didn't think it was going to be filmed in order, because you never really film anything in order. But I just really didn't know how any of it was going to go. But we filmed in Louisiana, where there was like nothing there. And I stayed in like a hotel for 2 months that, had like one bed and no kitchen. So it was really tough to kind of navigate that, um, you know, groceries and trying to like save money. And then also it was an indie film. And so it was a lot. But I mean, I think those are the projects that are so special, the ones where, it's people who are putting in the groundwork, it's the grassroots effort. And so, there were days I shared my little, my room. I didn't have a trailer. I shared my room, but it's you appreciate those moments, because you'll have those moments where you work on, big multi-million dollar sets where you'll have a trailer and all that stuff. But the key is, at the end of the day, is to just remain humble. And two words I live by are grace and gratitude. Those are two words I learned on that set, is that you should always have that. So
That was, I mean, just like a perfect way to.
that girl can give a good little speech, can't she?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, so those are all the questions we have. Thank you so much for talking to us and being so open about your experiences. Um, and I mean everything you've been through. I think this is there are things that I think literally everyone could take away from all of the things you've been saying, and there are a lot of things that I think a lot of people need to hear. Um, and so thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Of course, of course.
Is there anything else you would like to say, or have any other notes in the film industry that we might not have covered, or anything? Or
I feel like I'm like talked everybody off of the ledge already. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I get emotional about it, because I just I just think if there's so many people out there who really want to, um who either want to be actors or who want to be singers, or in the business. And I just say to them, like, oh, if there's anything that I can say, is that really there really is no roadmap, right? The only thing is you have to get up and do it. You can't use the excuse of, I don't have a car, so I can't get to the audition, or I don't have this. It's like everything is on Amazon, okay? If you need a lighting set, it's only $20, right? It's like all this stuff. There's so much that you can do right now, you know? Go
right.
outside, use portrait mode, take you some headshots, right? Get your little selfie stick. Oh,
Mhm.
somebody's calling me and I'm gonna hang up. Um, you know, but it's just like it doesn't have to be so complicated. But
Right.
at the end of the day, making sure that you are, oh my gosh, stop calling me. I can't get through my point. Let me just say this. There is
We're good. Center back in.
Okay. Shit now. Okay. So here's the thing.
You're very busy.
Actually, it's somebody from Chicago, and then like who I haven't talked to in a long time, and it's like, why are you calling me? So, okay. So yeah. Oh, they said it's important. Okay, maybe I'll stop talking then. I just wanted to leave everybody with there's no roadmap. If you want to do this, get up and go after it. Get you some headshots, get on LA Casting, sign up on We Audition, get yourself going because this is a tough business. It's not going to be easy every day, but if you believe that you can do it, then you can do it. I am living proof. So that is what I want to leave everybody with.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Obviously through Zoom. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you guys. Okay, I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Bye-bye. See ya.
Okay, bye-bye now.